If you're here, it's because you've probably been seeing a lot of things talking about higher self. I mean, of us have probably seen people talking about higher self and how to connect to the higher self. And I got myself thinking about this higher self and the rabbit hole that I found myself in, trying to achieve or trying to rise up and reach this higher self that has been proposed with so many people out here. And I wanted to really understand the higher self. And to do this, I had to go back as far back as where we could find any kind of written text or ancient text which are talking about the higher self and how to attain it. Now, some of the most ancient texts that I found out there were some like the Bhagavad Gita from India, which talk about the higher self, what it is, and how to attain it. And when you look at what these texts propose, they propose that, the higher self is something that transcends the ego. It is something that has zero attachment, and it kind of just is one of these things that looks like some badass superpower thing that we just need to, detach ourselves from everything that we are feeling, everything that we are experiencing, detach ourselves from experiences, emotions, and kind of just let go and be easy breezy, and we will attain the higher self. And many people have tried it. Many people have been trying it. Maybe people have been in the pursuit of higher self. And it had me thinking that if we are all in pursuit of higher self, and indeed there are some people who have been said they attained kind of some status of higher self. Yet when I look at it, I kept asking myself, but Jaylene, these people have attained higher self and we are all still living in this very same world that has all this attachment. So I had to critically think to myself and ask myself, are we chasing an illusion, or is there actual basis for this higher self? Am I just accepting what is being fed to me, or am I actually going out there and doing some proper research, some proper reading, some proper reflection, and finding out exactly what is this higher self? And if there is a higher self, then how do I access it in a way that is actually practical to me as a human being, in a way that makes me feel fulfilled rather than makes me feel less than? Because what I found in the pursuit of the higher self is that oftentimes it is made to seem as if the higher self is something that, it is something pure. It is something beyond. It doesn't want, it doesn't need, it doesn't seek attention, it doesn't attach to anything. And yet, the very essence of us as human beings, of me as a human being, is that I'm here to have an experience. The very essence of me as a human being is that I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience. And to have this physical experience, I have to be able to experience. The fact that I'm having an experience in itself is an attachment. The fact that I'm breathing itself is an attachment. Therefore, I had to pause myself and ask, what are these scriptures saying? What are these texts saying, the ancient texts saying? And what are they proposing in finding and attaining this higher self? So, number one, let's look at what the Bhagavad Gita from India says. And this can be traced as far back as 800 BCE. That's a very long time ago when they started advocating for this higher self stuff. So if we look at what the Bhagavad Gita proposes, they propose that the higher self, is, not attached to anything, right? It's about you detaching from that which is called Atman and actually transcending so that you can be one with what is called Brahman. So there are two things. Already right now we are experiencing what is called the Atman, and now we have to detach from Atman, which is the worldly things, and transcend and go beyond the ego and pursue this new thing or this particular being or this particular experience, which is called the Brahman. To do this, they advocate for us to do things like, meditation, mindful breathing, being right with the world, living righteously, and also mindfully being very mindful and doing all that yummy stuff of yoga, the meditation and all that. So when I looked at this, I said, okay, now we need to be doing yoga, probably detaching from, results or feelings or thoughts or, things that are around us, and now pursuing this higher self, which has zero attachment. But I have asked myself, does the higher self really have zero attachment? When you think about it, because the moment you're pursuing something, I say, now I'm going to pursue becoming my higher self. and I'm going to focus on my breathing, meaning I have to now focus. I have to actually have some consciousness thought to focus on breathing and just to breathe in and out and to see how it is moving within me. Then that by itself is attachment. That by itself now creates a problem because we are talking about detaching, but yet we are still attached to the act of breathing and pursuing this higher self. The act of detaching it, if you are going to get detached, you are actively having to go and practice all these steps that help you to become detached. That itself is an attachment to something. You see, for me, I look at this thing of higher self and I see it as some sort of comfort that us human beings have come up with. I feel like a lot of human beings, we came up with something to comfort us, more of a psychological construct to help us cope with the chaos in the world, because the world is very, very chaotic. Sometimes you can find that you have thoughts and your thoughts run wild and everything is chaotic. And we try so hard to understand why we were created, to understand why we are here, to understand why things are happening. And so when we find that we don't have answers to those things, we now look for something else to comfort us. And this is why most of us, even if you look at human beings, when we see our kids crying, we try to think of everything, then we comfort them to stop them crying. And our kids respond to the comfort and they stop crying. I truly believe that this is the same thing that happened with us when it came to a higher self and attaining this higher self. Because when we also look at another ancient text that talks about higher self, which has been the principle of building to this whole idea of higher self, let's look at the Tao Te Ching, which is from China, the Chinese ancient scripts that also talk about the higher self. If we look at the Tao Te Ching, what they advocate for is actually kind of an easy breezy living, where you are not really thinking about anything. You're just going with the flow. Everything is easy. You don't think about anything. Just go with the flow. It's also very heavy on detachment because the idea is detach and just go with the flow. But I kid you not, even detaching and going with the flow, right? The choice, the conscious choice, the moment a human being makes a conscious choice and you say, I am going to live easy breezy, let me tell you, everything in your life will be attached to that easy breezy. So there you have not detached from it. You have just changed the form of attachment that you are in to a different form of attachment. And this is why I feel that the whole notion of the higher self is really, really a loop that we all have gotten into. Because you come from one thing where you're saying, I'm detaching from these things in the world. I'm detaching from attachment, results, outcomes, feelings, emotions, all these things. And I'm now just going to live easy breezy. I'm going to focus on my breathing. I'm going to focus on attaining my higher self. And I'm going to just go with the flow and make everything easy. Those are attachments. Because you cannot do anything without being attached to it. You cannot say that the very form of rejecting these ones, because you have to practice rejection. You have to practice that I'm rejecting this particular line of thought, and now I am now practicing this particular line of thought. That is a conscious decision that requires everyday practice and pursuit. Because if you do not do them, then now you are also now consciously choosing the other side. So this had me thinking, why in the first place did human beings come up with this notion of higher self? And why are so many of us so hell-bent on actually trying to attain this higher self? And the answer for me came very easily, it just came very, very easily for me in thinking about, just as I told you, the way we treat our kids. We human beings, we are hardwired to, when we see something, when we see an issue, when we see a problem, instead of us like taking a process of solving it, our first take is always we want to do like kind of a bandage effect. We want to hide it. We want to cover it. We want to say, now, this thing, let's cover it. Let's throw it in the back so that we don't experience it. So for us to avoid actually experiencing life and actually to learn and grow and appreciate from life and the things that life has to offer, we created for us some sort of comfort zone where now we are saying there's a higher self. And we tell ourselves, let's attain the higher self. And it's a big underminement of what God has created in us. For me to say right now that I'm going to pursue a higher self, it puts in the question that why isn't the higher self just coming to do the work itself? I mean, if God created me and then created my higher self, why is the higher self not coming on earth and actively participating? If my higher self is supposed to be the guide, my higher self is the guide. It is the guide that should tell me, do this, and ABCD. Why is the higher self not here? Why not replace me with the higher self? I think these are questions we have to ask ourselves. What I truly believe is that we are the higher self. We are all and everything. And when we are pursuing this higher self, we derail and we procrastinate and we really, really undermine our creativity. Because the moment as a human being, you want to say there's something else that can do the work. And so I have to find this something else. And we negate to look at whatever it is that I already have. Now we are constantly moving and shifting goalposts because higher self can be anything. And it is an illusion that you can never attain. Because once you get to the higher self, we have to ask ourselves this critical question. When you get to the higher self, then what? Another question we have to ask ourselves is if this higher self truly exists. And many people, from those people who are from the Indian text, from the Tao Te Ching, from the Bhagavad Gita, to Plato and his philosophies of talking about mindfulness and all that stuff that they talk about in the ancient texts, and in advocating for higher self, if people have practiced it, and yet they're still on this same earth, they died on this same earth with us, and as of now, we are all still pursuing the higher self. What does that make you think? We've got to think critically as human beings. We've got to think beyond what somebody else coins and gives to you. Because the problem is, and this was a big problem for me, is that for a long time, I felt that there is something missing and I've got to find it. There's a part of me that is lost and I've got to find it. So I've spent so many years trying to find this higher self, trying to attain that level of higher self, trying to vibrate at this level which higher self is. But I paused. I asked myself, higher self, since now you're here, since you know how to do the job, since you are so efficient, eloquent, all knowing, all providing, all guiding, why don't you come and do it? Because let's say I lived throughout all my life and have not attained higher self, as many people do. People who are not aware of these teachings, people who do not know or are confused and going around in circles looking for this higher self, people who have tried and every time they try, the goalpost seems to be shifting because the higher self, it will always rise. The more you rise, the more it will rise. The more you rise, the more it will rise. And it becomes an endless loop for us human beings. Instead of just saying, okay, I'm here, this is it, even if it's good or if it's shitty, this is it, this is what it's presenting, and I love it the way it is. So therefore, I am going to live just the way, without saying there's a higher self. And just do all you can do, enjoy all you can do, and live the experience. Live this experience. Be present in this experience right now. Because the moment you start saying, I am pursuing this higher self, you know, when you're pursuing something, that thing keeps running. So you're pursuing it, it says, oh, I'm being pursued. So this thing will also always keep shifting. It always keeps shifting because you're pursuing it. So to me, this is the problem that presents itself with higher self. And this is why I say the higher self is an absolute myth. It is not founded on anything that we can say that this is the thing. Because if we found somebody who had already attained higher self, they'll tell us, oh, these are the true steps to attaining higher self. Because look, let us look exactly at all the steps. And let's not look at the complicated steps of someone saying, oh, there's this. Most of the principles are the same. It's about number one, detachment. Number two, alignment. So you detach, but then you align to something else. So you detach from the things that you know, results, feelings, all these things that that as human beings we are experiencing. The very experience that God brought us to experience, to live, to be, to have, and to dominate, those are the experiences that God put us here on earth to have. But then now we have to detach from them, and then we have to seek this higher self. Now, this higher self is also not defined as God. It's not God, because you're not even saying that I'm going to have a relationship, because having a relationship and pursuing something is very different. When it comes to higher self, it's you pursuing and aligning to the higher self by detaching yourself from the things that you are experiencing in this world, from the results and outcomes that are on this world. And now you go and align with the ease and the flow of the universe, your higher self, whatever that is as they define it, something that transcends ego. And yet, the very fact that you're going to shift your focus from this requires your own ego. There is no escaping that ego. It requires your ego. No wonder when Solomon, when the book of Ecclesiastes was written, it was said, after you look at everything, it's all meaningless. It becomes all meaningless when you start pursuing, because that pursuit, for me, the way I see it, is like a complete underminement of God and His creation. It's like somebody, you create, let me say, this book, right? So you've created this book, and this book maybe is called The Book of Stories of Many Lands. So you've created this book, you've written it. But then once you create this book, you start telling the words within this book to now go a level higher, to change levels. So you tell the books, the stories within this book start changing levels so that you can meet your truth. Does it make sense? Make it make sense. You tell the book, no, now change levels so that you can meet your true story. So the book will be preoccupied with trying to find its true story, trying to find its true narrative, instead of just relaxing and saying, this is the story. This is what is written here. Now let me just experience the story as it is, because the story is already there. We're already here as human beings. I'm already here as myself. You are there as yourself. In going to pursue this higher self, in going to look for this higher self, we are saying, I'm not enough. And the thing that God created right here is not enough. Therefore, I have to go and look for myself 3.0, myself 10.0. When I get to 10.0, I'm like, let me upgrade, because higher self is still there. Higher self is an illusion that keeps changing. It keeps changing. And the moment someone thinks that they have tapped into higher self, it's gonna just do a turnaround on you, and now we have a whole new definition. Now, my biggest problem with the concept of higher self is the derailment it causes a lot of people. The derailment it causes a lot of people, and the advantage that so many people take in actually trying to sell people this narrative. Because so many books have been written, so many courses have been done, so many self-help groups, so many self-help knowledge has been coined and written just to talk about the higher. Guys, if the higher self is here, the higher self would sit down here and do the work. For those of us who are parents, when I see my child and I give them instructions and I tell them, of course I'm guiding them, right? And I give them instruction and I let them learn. But I give them clear instructions. I'm never quiet. I'm never like, I don't whisper. I don't give it as an implied story. I give my child clear instructions. I tell them, hey baby, this is the thing. This is how we do it. And I show, because we human beings, we are see-do. So I show my kid, for example, that when I was teaching my son how to do dishes, because he used to struggle with putting the right amount of soap, I would practically show him and tell him, this is the soap, this is how you squeeze it, and this is how you put it back. And it took a couple of takes. Then after some time, I step back. I tell him, go do the dishes. It's going to drive me crazy, but I see how he's doing it. Now, when I see there's something that is truly, truly dangerous, I rush in and I say, maybe he's holding a knife and I didn't realize the knife was there. I rush in and I grab the knife and I tell him, okay, when you see knife and it's like this is how you hold it, because now he's old enough. So I have very active participation in being a guide for my son. And to my son, he can see me as probably, the guide or the mentor, because I'm his mom. So now let's talk about higher self, which we as the ones who are supposed to go and look for it. Now we look for higher self, while higher self is seated and observing and waiting for us. I don't know whether to mess up or to die, so that it can come now and now start doing what it's supposed to do. Guys, make it make sense. Make it make sense. Why are we pursuing something that is an illusion? To me, higher self is an illusion. It's something we have created to console ourselves as human beings, and it derails us massively from achieving our potential, not our true potential, because also there's nothing like true potential. Your potential is your potential. To say there is true potential and some certain type of potential implies that the potential that God gave you is already not potential. We have potential, plain and period. You are yourself, plain and period. We have talents, plain and period. Go find out what your talents are and keep doing that talent that you need to be doing. Work on your talents, work on your skills. But when you start working on higher self, that is the pursuit of something that will never come to fruition. It will never come to fruition. So guys, I hope this video has blessed somebody. And guys, if you love these videos and discussions like this, please remember to like my videos and subscribe so that we can continue having conversations that provoke our thoughts rather than just accepting everything that is given to us. Because a lot of us have been derailed massively. We have been derailed massively by people talking about finding higher self, aligning to the higher self, aligning to the universe and what the universe is saying, as if the universe created us. No, the universe did not create us. We were created and we were given dominance over the universe. And so we have to rise up and act as people who dominate, not people who are now worshiping the creation and not the creator. I hope this helps somebody out there. And let me know what you think about this. Do you think that the higher self is something that God actually put out there for us to go and attain? Or is the higher self an illusion that we keep dangling in front of ourselves, and we chase this illusion until the day we die, missing the opportunity to actually go out and do what we need to be doing in our lifetime and experiencing the life that God set out for us? I thank you so much for watching and being with me. Until the next video, take care. I love you.